Hello students, hope everybody is fine. Now today we are going to start our class with the recall what we have done in our previous class. In our previous class we have read lesson number 3rd, that is the third lesson of geography, our changing earth. In this we have seen that how the changes in the earth occurs and what type of movements occur under the surface of the earth and what type of forces are present. All that we have read in our previous class. So in detail we have read that the lithosphere is broken into number of plates known as lithospheric plates. Now what is lithosphere? As you already are aware of this word lithosphere, it is a rigid outer part of the earth, considering consisting of the crust and the upper mantle layer of the earth. So the lithosphere, when it is broken into number of plates, it is called as lithospheric plates. And this is because of the movement of molten magma. These plates are broken down just because of the movement of molten magma inside the earth. And the molten magma inside the earth moves in a circular motion, that is circular manner, and this we have seen through the activity given at the side box. Now the movement of the plates causes many changes deep inside the earth also and on the surface of the earth also. And uh, it is based on the forces. These movements are based on some forces, and these forces can be divided into two parts. We have seen that endogenic forces and exogenic forces. And in endogenic forces, we have seen that the forces which act in the interior of the earth are called as endogenic forces. That means the word endo means interior of the earth. So the forces, whichever forces are acting in the interior of the earth, they causes the movement in the earth and brings the changes on the surface of the earth. And the forces that work on the surface of the earth are called exogenic forces. Exogenic means exo, the word exo means outer side of the earth. So when the forces that work on the surface of the earth, uh, they are called as termed as exogenic forces. Further in this, we have seen the lithospheric plate definition also, in which the earth crust consists of several large and small, rigid, irregular shaped plates, and these plates can also be termed as slabs, which carry continent and ocean floor. Then, in detail, we have seen about endogenic forces, that endogenic forces sometimes produce sudden movements and at the other times produce slow movements. Means both the endogenic forces can produce both sudden movements also, and at times it can be in the slow movements also. But the sudden movements of these forces can cause a lot of destruction in the form of earthquake and volcanoes. Then we have seen in the next page the definition of volcano. A volcano is a vent. Vent is an opening. We can see here in the diagram also. So a volcano is a vent in the earth crust through which molten magma erupts suddenly. Which the molten magma erupts. Erupts means we have seen yesterday in a previous class that erupts means it comes out all at once. Erupts suddenly. So with the diagram I had explained you the volcano, that it comes out from the magma chambers deep inside the earth. Then it comes out slowly in the form of lava, red hot molten lava, and the pass through which it comes out, it is known as vent, and the topmost opening is called as crater, and it is in the form of gases and ash outside. Further, we have seen that similarly with the lithospheric plate movement, the surface of the earth also vibrates. When there is movement in the lithospheric plates, the vibration is there in the surface of the on the surface of the earth. And these vibration when travels all around the earth, these vibrations are called as earthquake. So we have understood the definition of earthquake also. The place in the crust where the movement start is called focus. Now, this what is focus, what is earthquake, what is focus, what is epicenter, this all we have understood through this diagram, that the place in the crust where the movement start is called as focus, and just above the focus, the place just above the focus on the surface of the earth is termed as epicenter, and vibration travel outward from the epicenter as waves, and the greatest damage is usually closest to the epicenter, where the epicenter on the surface of the earth. So the most of the destruction through earthquake and volcano is near the epicenter only, and afterwards when it the vibration decreases, then the destruction is also less. Further, we have seen that earthquake cannot be predicted, but by few indications, the local people where this earthquake appears, often appears, uh, there the local people can predict this with the while observing or studying the animal behavior, such as fish starts agitating in the ponds, snakes come out on the surface of the surface of the earth. So these things, by observing these things, the local people had a belief that the earthquake will be appearing in near future. Then the case study was given of the earthquake, where we have read about the earthquake which hits Bhuj, and on 26th of January 2001. Then uh, this was the activity given, that in the activity you have to just arrange the events in the right sequence of what had happened. Means first the earthquake appears, then what all things happen during the earthquake, that means schools are worst affected, destruction, what all destruction is there, then what is the appeal, what is the emergency measures taken at that time. So all this according to it, the events you have to mark the sequence, but it is already given there. Then do you know, we'll start today with do you know. The earthquake is measured with machine called a seismograph. You can underline this, that an earthquake is measured with the machine called a seismograph, and the magnitude of the earthquake is measured on the Richter scale. Means the size of the earthquake is measured, or we can say the extent of the earthquake is measured on the Richter scale, and earthquake of 2.0 or less than be felt only a little bit. Means only little bit, if the measurement of the earthquake is 2.0 only, so only little bit vibration we can feel. An earthquake over 5.0 can cause damage from things falling. If 5.0, the measurement of earthquake, the magnitude level of earthquake is 5.0, then it can cause damage, and damage in the form of things falling over. And then a 6.0 or higher magnitude is considered very strong, and 7.0 is classified as the major earthquake. That means major destructions mean most of the destruction, human as life as well as property destruction, is made when the magnitude is very strong, that is up to 7.0. And then uh, here earthquake preparedness is given, where to take shelter during the earthquake. Now if earthquake appears, what all things to be kept in mind to uh, face the disaster confidently. First is you have to find out the safe spot where you should go and safely protect yourself, and it can be under the kitchen counter, table, or desk, or against the inside corner or a wall. So these are the safe spot while the earthquake is there. Then second thing you can keep in mind, that stay away from, you have to stay away from what all things during the earthquake. You have to stay away from fireplaces, areas around chimney, windows that shatter, including mirrors and picture frames. So if you will be staying away from all these places, less damage to your life and property will be there. But if you will be near fireplaces, near chimneys, windows, shattering windows, mirrors, picture frames, then might be you will have more harmful effects on yourself. Then third, we should be prepared. That means you should spread awareness among your friends and family members to face this type of disasters confidently. They should not get panic all at once and run here and there without any knowledge. They should be calm and cool, and they should be prepared to face such type of disaster confidently. Now, next, major landforms. Now, in this, the landscape is being continuously worn away by two processes. That means the landscape. What is a landscape? The landscape consists of the landforms such as mountains, plateaus, plains, hills, rivers, lakes. So all this consists of the landscape. So the landscape is being continuously worn away by two processes. Worn away means it is disappearing. We can say in a sense of disappearing, or it is becoming thinner or smaller continuously by the process of weathering and erosion. So, which all two processes are responsible for wearing away of our landscape? The processes are weathering and erosion. Now, erosion, weathering is the breaking up of what is weathering now? Weathering is the breaking up of rocks on the earth's surface. So, when the rocks are broken down into simpler or smaller forms, it is termed as weathering. And erosion is the wearing away of landscape by different agents like water, wind, and ice. And now, what is erosion? Erosion is another process through which landscape is being continuously uh, becoming disappearing or becoming smaller or thinner. So, in this, the erosion, different agents like water, wind, and ice, they carry away the things with them and make a change in the landscape. The eroded material is carried away or transported by water, wind, etc. So whatever things are taken away are carried away by the work of water and wind or ice in the form of glacier and all. They are transported by wind, water, etc. to another place, and then eventually, slowly, they are deposited whenever the pressure of water and wind from which they have been carried away, when the pressure of that water and wind is slower down, they get deposited, are deposited at another place, and this process of erosion and deposition create different landforms on the surface of the earth. And thus the process of erosion means carrying away of uh, the fertile soil or the eroded material from one place to depositing it at another place, creates a different landforms on the earth surface. Now, with this related only, we will read about work of river. That means the work of river means landscape change due to the work of river. Now, the running water is in the river erodes the landscape. This also we can say that the running water, the flowing water in the river, it also erodes the landscape. It also makes the landscape uh, something different from what it was previously. When the river tumbles at steep angles over very hard rocks or down a steep valley side, it forms a waterfall. So, what is a waterfall? When the river tumbles at steep angles, that means at steep angles, it tumbles down over the hard rock or down the steep valley, then it forms a waterfall like this. So here in the diagram we can see clearly that the hard rock is there on the top, then afterwards the softer rock, they are undercut by the power of the water, and the water comes down in the form of waterfall like this. The sidewalks, do you know there are thousands of small waterfalls in the world? There are many thousands of small waterfalls in the world, but the highest, you can underline this, the highest waterfall is Angel Fall of Venezuela in South America. So in South America is the highest waterfall. Name of this waterfall is Angel Fall. But apart from this, there are many other also waterfalls like Nigeria Falls, that is located on the border between Canada and USA in North America, and Victoria Falls on the borders uh, borders of Zambia and Zimbabwe in Africa. So these are the other waterfalls, but the highest among that is Angel Falls of Venezuela, that is in South America. Next, after this, as the river enters the plain, now we have seen what is waterfall. Now the second part of the work of the river is when this river enters the plain, it twists and turns. Means when it enters a plain area, it twists and turns like this, forming the large bends known as meanders. So these large bends, twisting and turning of the rivers in the plain, it is termed as meander. Now, due to this continuous erosion and deposition, means continuously the river is flowing, the water is flowing, and with the flowing of the water, the sediments and all are carried away from one place to another. That means eroded at from one place and deposited at another place. Then along the side of the meander, the ends of the meander loop comes closer. Then at the side of the when this loop comes closer, in due course of time, the meander loop cuts off from the river and forms a cut-off lake, also called as Oxbow Lake. So this cut-off lake is also called as Oxbow Lake. So how this happens? First of all, the river enters the plain area and it is twisted and turned because no particular way is there to for the flow of the water. That is why when it gets the plain area, the river twisted and turns, forming the large bends, and that is called as meander. And when due to continuous erosion and deposition, continuously water is flowing, and when continuously water is flowing, then naturally the water will carry with it whatever comes in between that, and whenever little bit flow of water is becoming less in speed, then at that time the deposition will take place, means whatever carried with the flow of water will be deposited at another place. So in due course, when this due to these deposition, uh, the meander loop cuts off from the river, it comes closer. First of all, it comes the loops comes closer and closer, and then it cuts off from the main river, and forms a cut-off lake, it is also called as Oxbow Lake. So the Oxbow Lake is formed in a separate landscape form from the main river. And at times the river overflows its banks. Sometimes when the river is flowing, the speed is so much high that it overflows its banks also, and this leads to the flooding of neighboring areas. And when the overflow of the river is there, then the flood appears in the nearby areas, and it as it floods, it deposits layers of the fine soil and other material called sediments. And when the overflow of water is there, flood will be there, and flood will be there. When the flood will be there, then fine soil will be uh, in the form of sediments will be settled down on the banks of the river, and this leads to the formation of flat fertile plains, and thus this will lead to the flat fertile plains over here. The raised banks are called leaves, and the raised banks This inside will be the floodplain where the flat, fertile land is present due to the flood overflow of the river water. And then apart from this, the raised banks are called as leaves. So these raised banks will be we will call as leaves, will be called as leaves. As the river approaches the sea, slowly now river is approaching the sea. The speed of the flowing water decreases as the river from the when it is flowing from the mouth, the speed is very high, and as soon as it reaches to the sea, the speed of the water will definitely decrease, and the river begins to break up. And now the river begins to break up. This is the coming of the river. Floodplains and all are made, and after that, when the speed becomes slower down, then it starts breaking up into the number of streams, and these number of streams are called as distributaries. I think now it is clear. So what we have read, the river, how it works. First, it forms the meander. That means when it enters the plain area, it twists and turns and into the large vents, and it is called as meander. After meander, slowly, because of continuous erosion and deposition, uh, the loops come closer and closer, and finally it cuts off from the main river and forms in a cutoff lake that is also called as Oxbow Lake. Finally, when we see that when the river water is flowing, uh, is a means it is in the large speed, and the flood appears and deposit the layers of soil and other material called sediments and on the banks of the river, and these forms the fertile flood plain. And after that, the raised banks, we can see that it is called as leaves. But when it final we have seen that when this river reaches to the sea, the speed automatically slower down, and when the speed of the river slows down, then it starts breaking into number of streams, and these streams, small streams of the river, main river, it is termed as distributary. I think the word distributary is clear. Now the river becomes so slow that it begins to deposit its load. Now the speed of the river is very much slow, and it start depositing its load, means whatever is carried with the flowing of the water, it is all deposited, it is all uh, taken away and settled at another place. Each distributary forms its own mouth. Now, each of the distributary, each of the stream form its own mouth. Now, it is away from the main river and forms its own streams, number of streams, and each distributary forms its own mouth. The collection of sediments from all the mouth forms a delta, and thus we see that the collection of sediment from all the mouths, whatever from wherever these distributaries are arising, it forms and takes the form of a delta. So this was the work of the river. Now we come to the work of the sea waves. Now how sea waves work in the disappearing, or we can say making thinner or smaller, our landscape. Now, the erosion and deposition of the sea waves give rise to coastal landforms. You can underline this, that the erosion and deposition of the sea waves means the carrying away of the um, earth surface, and it deposited at another surface, it is placed at another place, it gives rise to the coastal landforms. That means the sea waves gives the erosion, and the work of the sea waves gives rise to the coastal landforms, and sea waves continuously strike at the rocks. Now when these sea waves continuously strike at the rocks, it the cracks develops. Now when something, uh, you can also observe that when continuously you are striking at something, naturally the crack will develop. The same way when sea waves continuously strike over the uh, rock surface, it cracks, the cracks develops in the rocks, and over the time they become larger and wider. Slowly when with the passing of the time, these cracks become larger in size and wider in size. Thus the hollow like caves are formed on the rocks. They are called sea caves. So first of all, little bit only, with the continuous strike, cracks are created there on the surface of the rock, and when continuously this uh, strike uh, striking of the rock by the sea waves is there, then the cracks become larger in size and wider in size, thus making the sea arcs, which is now becoming hollow. We can see straight away in the picture that it is inside it, the rock is completely broken. The crack had developed so much that it has completely broken, and a type of way is there, and sea arc is formed. As these cavities become bigger and bigger, only the roof of the caves remain, and only the roof of the cave remains, and the pass is there, from where from one side to another side you can pass easily. This type of sea arc formation is there due to the working of sea waves on the rocks. Further erosion breaks the roof and only walls are left. Further, more erosion is done by the sea waves, that is continuously the crack breaking of the rocks is there, and only now walls are left, and these only the roof and only the walls are left. It is called as stack. This wall-like feature is called as stack. So from the sea waves, sea caves, then sea caves turn into sea arcs, and then sea arcs is changed into stacks due to the work of the sea waves. Then the steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above the sea water is called sea cliff. Now rising vertically above the sea water, we can call it a sea cliff, and the sea waves deposit sediments along the shores, forming beaches. And finally, beaches are formed due to the deposition of the sediments along the shores of the river, seas. So this way, work of the sea happens to create a different type of landform in the coastal areas. So today till here only, read the lesson till here, and can understand. If you are not able to follow, you can ask me, whether on WhatsApp or personally also you can ask me. So today we have read about work of river, where we have seen first the waterfall, how waterfall appears, then due to the work of the river, meanders are made. After meanders, Oxbow Lake we have seen. After Oxbow Lake, fertile flat plains, and then leaves, and finally distributaries we have seen due to the work of river. Then in work of sea waves, we have seen that sea caves are made. Sea caves turn into sea arcs, then sea arcs into stacks, and then after the stacks, sea cliffs and beaches are formed due to the work of sea waves. So till here only. In the next class, we will continue from work of ice. Uh, Till then, take care. Thank you.